I promise all of you this is just coincidence. It's not how I planned things to go at all. It's just that with everything I've had to deal with in the last few weeks, from the delays to my computer problems to trying to have to find a new place to record, I had no choice but to scrap plans for my next review in favor of something simpler, and this was the best choice. So yes, I'm following up my Drawn Together review by reviewing the same show that Mr. Enter followed up his Drawn Together review with. But in my defense, this is a show whose time on TV trash has been long coming. We've talked many times about how often a live-action show was transformed into a Saturday morning cartoon with a new premise that made absolutely no sense, and this is probably the most infamous example of such. This show seems to be everyone's exhibit A as to just how bad things got for animated television into the 70s going into the early 80s. For those not aware of the backstory, it all started when Hanna-Barbera wanted to make an animated adaptation of Doctor Who, but failed to get the license. I'm guessing what happened is the BBC took one look at what HB had done adapting other shows in recent years and said bloody hell no. So naturally, William and Joe had to turn to plan B, and of course the next best thing to turn into a time travel sci-fi action cartoon was Happy Days. You know, the classic long-running sitcom from the 70s that's pretty much responsible for romanticizing the 50s. Which is why I eagerly await the cartoon of that 70s show set on the spaceship from Firefly. In the meantime, let's finally take a look at just how ridiculous the Fonz and the Happy Days gang really was. So here's what the gist of the show seems to be. A time-traveling alien girl from the future named Cupcake. That's really all you need to hear to know the creators were on the good drugs for this one. Crash lands in front of Arnold's and needs help getting her time machine spaceship to work, which Fonzie is able to do just by hitting it like it's a TV set. And for this, the girl apparently offers everyone there a ride in the ship. And sadly, the idea that Fonzie could fix the ship like that and would then just accept the offer from a cute space girl is what makes the most sense out of this show. And yes, all of that is just what I've deduced from the intro, which has a less than bare bones narration from either Wolfman Jack or a reasonably good impersonator of him.
Oh, now the gang got zapped into that time machine and they're like traveling through time. They do not think where that machine is going, but they sure hope to get back to 1957 Milwaukee.
Now, I'm not going to really rant on the individual episodes themselves, because to be honest, they aren't that bad. They're just the standard stories of normal humans getting in wacky adventures across space and time that has been used who knows how many times before. Nothing too ludicrous for a cartoon. Though apparently there was an episode where they get stranded in Cuba with Isaac Newton, Nikola Tesla, and Marie Curie. No, the majority of my problems are with the framing device for the series as a whole, as to why these characters are used for it, and what the hell they were thinking going with this. Okay, so the bare-bones similarities to Doctor Who are quite visible in this cartoon. We have a time-traveling alien from the future, or just a human from the future in this case, I'm still not exactly sure, with a bunch of human companions bouncing back and forth through space and time along in a malfunctioning spaceship. But the thing is, why add in the plot device of the party just wanting to get home like it's Land of the Lost? Seriously, we're to assume that Fonz, Richie, and Ralph originally got into this machine of their own choice, but immediately the series starts with them trying to get back home to 1957 Milwaukee. Just how long were they bouncing around through time before they got homesick? Oh, you simpletons. This cartoon came out before 1985, so the creators don't give a rat's ass about telling you any important information like that. I know how much I've harped on this, but it's one of the most frustrating things for me about cartoons from this time period. It makes me feel extremely lucky that by the time I really became dedicated to watching TV and Saturday cartoons in the mid to late 80s, this trend had begun to die out, and cartoon creators were finally starting to put out effort into fully establishing the origins of their show's storylines and settings within the stories themselves. There are some cases where you can get away with it when the setting is simple enough, like the standard good kingdom versus evil mastermind in He-Man, but when you adapt an already established property like Happy Days and throw the characters into a whole different setting with very little explanation, well...
It just raises too many questions.
And no, I don't buy the excuse that it's just for kids, because if I was watching these shows as a kid, you're damn right I'd want to see that origin in an actual episode to help me figure out what the frack was going on. And because the show is immediately about them trying to get home in a ship that should be able to do that, they have to keep throwing in the plot inconvenience of the ship constantly breaking down so they can't achieve their goal. Really, every single time it looks like they have the ship fixed by the end of one episode, and when the next episode starts, something else has broken down and thrown them off course again.
The calamities, Fonzie! We've just blown a fuse!
Well, let me tell you something. Wherever we are, there better be a fuse out there.
Oh, we'll be stuck here forever. There goes our entire water supply. The time machine will overheat without water.
It's really bad when the Smurfs came up with a better way to do this whole plot device. Oh yeah, did you guys not know that? The final season of The Smurfs had a whole time travel storyline as well in a desperate attempt to salvage that series. I've considered reviewing that season, but at least there it was explained that they lost the magic key that allowed them to properly assemble the magic time crystals, and they had to keep trying different assembly patterns on their own. And at least we were shown all of that in the first episode of that season. Here, basically all we're told is this time-traveling spaceship is a hunk of junk that its pilot can't fix on her own and constantly needs the Fonz to help her with. Yeah, that probably sounds harsh when I can't even change my car's oil myself, but seeing how incompetent Cupcake is in not only operating the ship, but also using her magic powers. Oh yeah, did I forget to mention that Future Girl can use magic, but only does so when the plot requires something else to go wrong? That you can only wonder just how in the hell she got such a ship in the first place. Now, from what I've been told by friends and fans who are greater Whovians than me, the backstory of Doctor Who is that the Doctor pretty much did swipe a run-down, decommissioned TARDIS just because he was bored and wanted adventure. But at least in that case, he had some basic knowledge of the ship and how it worked, so he could use that or some other level of ingenuity to fix the thing whenever it broke down. Cupcake, for lack of a better term, is pretty much a bimbo. It's painfully obvious that she has no clue how to work her own spaceship and needs the help of a human to always fix it for her, even if it's a superhuman like the Fonz. And no, I can't completely claim that this cartoon is turning Fonzie into a Gary Stew with everything he does here, even when it's getting alien robots attracted to him and and being able to fly a starfighter. Because remember, this guy was able to go toe-to-toe with an alien in the original series. But still, you brought in a character who not only has a time machine, but also magic powers, and you immediately make her an invalid just to make the main character of the show look even more superhuman than he was already being portrayed in his original show. Amazingly, Cupcake is pretty much the reverse of a Mary Sue in this regard, and it's not any easier to deal with. I'm just going to assume that she's a spoiled, petulant girl who got into an argument with Daddy and in a huff stole the family spaceship and ran away and subsequently got herself lost in time. And these are only the beginning of the multiple questions this show raises. Like, why is the dog here? Yes, because it's the early 80s, the cartoon just had to have an anthropomorphic, funny animal sidekick character. So they gave Fonzie a dog named Mr. Cool, who is always trying to act like his master, but somehow comes off as even more annoying than Scrappy Doo. Really, if Cupcake isn't the one that gets everyone in trouble at some point in an episode, it's Cool that does it. You've basically combined Scrappy with Gilligan. Why did animators think this was a good plot device back then? I will give credit that the animation is like the Duke's cartoon in getting the likenesses of the characters down pretty well, except for... is that supposed to be Richie? I mean, it couldn't have been a hard job to get a good image of him to use. Ron Howard provided the voice for the character.
Kate, with Earth in danger?
Fonz, let the Earth down. I got plans.
Well, look on the bright side.
What bright side, Cunningham?
At least we know the lever works, huh?
Yes, they did get Ron Howard, Henry Winkler, and Donnie Most to voice their characters from the show, and I'm guessing that took up about 90% of the budget. Which is probably why Potsy and Chachi got left out, and thus spared the indignation of being in this show, and why they had to cut corners on so many other areas of production, like the credits. Seriously, the credits of every episode show 3 producers, 3 directors, 4 story editors, and 36 other voice actors. So what pretty much happened was they made just one roll of credits that included everyone that worked on the whole series and reused it for every single episode. Maybe this was done before on other cartoon shows, I just don't know, but it still comes off as beyond cheap and lazy. Despite all of this, this show, like the Dukes, got a second season. Not that many would know it. The show is so poorly received today that information on that second season is all over the place. There are episodes from the second season that people have posted on YouTube that aren't listed on the show's Wikipedia page. I know that time is actually a ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff, but this is ridiculous. And no, the series didn't end showing the gang getting back home, though I guess they did somehow, because Fonzie did appear in the second season of the Laverne and Shirley cartoon. Oh yes, somehow this show was enough to have Gary Marshall and Paramount let Hanna-Barbera adapt Laverne and Shirley into a cartoon for 1981 that was very loosely based on the one episode when they were in the army, and then the next year they not only added the Fonz to that show, but paired it up with a cartoon of Mork and Mindy. It looks like the rights to all of these shows went to Paramount, so you'll never see any of them make it into the Warner Archive collection. And I don't know why they would want to anyway, unless they were to be used in a seminar on how not to make cartoons. Bottom line, Fonz and the Happy Days gang never should have been part of cartoon history. It pretty much has everything that was wrong with most cartoons from the 70s into the mid-80s, only much more blatant. It's a cheap attempt to cash in on another successful show with a horribly thought-out adaptation with a nonsensical setting, way too little setup for that setting, and additional characters that you just want to see all the cells that produce them burned. I would actually say this thing hurt Happy Days more than Fonzie jumping that shark did. It looks like it was the last thing Ron Howard did as a full-time contributor, as he left the main show immediately after the cartoon finished production, and so much more went downhill from there. And that included what probably was the worst entry of the franchise of all. Oh yes, everything you just saw might not even be the worst thing to be spun off from Happy Days. What could be worse? Oh ho ho! Tune in next time on TV Trash for something I definitely don't think you're gonna love.